And what a dummy! Welcome back to the Fantasy Rugby Draft podcast. Thanks for downloading and listening. I'm Bruce Wilkinson, and joining me again in the booth is the man primarily made of moss, Nathan Mossman. How are you, sir?
Bruce, I'd like to begin with a story.
Go on.
It's not a story, really. It's an interesting little insight. I was actually just looking at just a couple of teams that I have, a couple of leagues that I'm in. One that's 6-0 and another one that's, I think, 1-5. And just what the differences between them are. Mm-hmm. And it's actually pretty interesting because it was, both teams have the same fly house, Ehire West.
Sure.
Is the same in both. But what's interesting is just the difference, how much of a difference, I guess almost luck can make.
Yep.
So in the 6-0 team, so I picked Israel Folau.
You heard
and I think probably just by chance with the way the picks would have worked out, because obviously he would have been very early on, ended up getting Charlie Ngatai.
Oh, yeah.
Now, in this other league, where I would have picked a little bit later, I picked up Julian Sevilla, and because I would have come back around a little bit sooner, I ended up with Malachi Fekitoa, which is not bad, but obviously Sevilla, Fekitoa versus Ngatai and Folau, the difference is massive.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, right.
And it's an interesting thing because the theory or the strategy behind both teams was actually the same when I was doing it. And if I looked at it on paper, I'd be like, I might actually have preferred the one that's 1-5 on paper.
It's
so
funny that works out,
it's just bizarre looking at it now. It's just how much difference it's made.
Chaz Ngatai just ripping up trees.
Oh,
continue to rip up trees. We'll get on to that.
Yeah.
Recording this on Monday, April the 4th. Did you catch 2020? What do you reckon Ben Stokes will be doing right now? Sorry, Englishman Ben Stokes.
I didn't see any of it. I just heard about it on the radio. So, yeah.
I do like the British-born Andy Murray and the Scottish-born Andy Murray.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Similar thing here in New Zealand at the moment with Ben Stokes. It's music.
Yeah. I don't think there would have been any neutral supporter in the world that was supporting England, surely.
Nope, certainly not. Going to review Game Week 6. Going to cross across to the free agent desk and check out some players that you want to pick up for Game Week 7. And then we'll look at some top scores, the top managers and the top leagues for Game Week 6. Right, let's crack into the review for Game Week 6 though. And as per custom, we'll do a match of the day, which is the game that is the least interest or the more dour or however you want to phrase it will go last. We actually put a bit of a Twitter poll out to see what the users would like to see. And that just finished up. So I thought it was quite interesting. So the three options were Blues Jaguares, Waratahs Rebels and Bulls Cheetahs. What do you reckon the outcome might have been of that?
Well, I voted in that poll, and I voted for Waratahs Reds.
That's the winner. And it's overwhelmingly 62% said Waratahs Rebels, and then 19% for Blues Jaguars and Bulls Cheetahs.
So I have a theory there. I'd say
on.
that it will be disgruntled managers who are angry, specifically at Israel Folau probably, but for a number of others.
I have a feeling you're right.
It could be one of those things too where Cheetahs Bulls, sitting here now thinking about it, even though I watched it, I can't remember anything specific about the game.
Right.
Whereas I remember a lot about Waratahs Reds, but it was mainly about knock-ons, mistakes, etc. So you've got a game which is not very memorable versus a game that was memorable for all the wrong reasons.
No, 100%. I think you're spot on there with testing the temperature of Waratahs or fantasy rugby draft managers. All right, Highlanders Force. So I guess we need to start at the top. So Lima Sopoaga. Firstly, the injury. So it was a ductor muscle injury. It's Thursday. It happened in training, I believe. And in terms of his availableness, which is a word I've just made up, he is in doubt for the Reds clash this weekend. Secondly, and I'm sure you're sick of hearing about this, Mossman, and actually probably the listeners as well, but I feel like, I don't know, I rant about this pretty much every week, about the lack of transparency and the reporting over. I feel like, remember the Shooter McGavin clip, damn it people, this is golf. if you're just putting that on loop and it's like, damn it, people, this is professional rugby. So I just don't understand how the TAB or Centrebet or any of the betting companies aren't flipping out about this. Fantasy rugby draft, we're newcomers, so we hardly make any ripples, but we will eventually get there and make ripples and be relevant in terms of how journalists shape their articles about this type of reporting and the transparency of injuries. This type of thing will become much, much more forefront of the minds. But I don't know how, at the moment, the betting agencies aren't going crazy. Someone like Lima Sopoaga, that might move a line 5 points. The drop between Lima Sopoaga and Hayden Parker, for instance. Let's say, I don't know, what would you guess the line was for TAB? I don't know what it was. It probably would be about 20 points, right?
Probably, yeah.
Something like that?
Yep.
You would have gone massively on the under as soon as you heard that news, and as soon as it came on. It's just, they all of a sudden they lose out significantly on that. I just don't know how they're not flipping out. Perhaps they have a lot better connections than, say, the New Zealand journalists or the articles that are written. I don't know. But yeah, for me, it's amateur hour. I don't understand how this can keep on going, and it's just astonishing to me. I assume you share the same sentiment?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, moving on. And after that, my weekly rant. Patrick Osborne started out with a howler, didn't he? You see his flip that he tried?
I did, yes. Talk about putting your mate on the spot, right?
Yeah, that's right. I think it's one of those which is live by the sword, die by the sword. He'll do it then, he'll do it on 79 minutes, he's going to pop it up wherever he is, and he's going to try and create that. And I think that's the environment they got in the Highlanders. You see a lot of the offloads. Actually, that's probably the same for a lot of New Zealand teams we're going to get onto as well. But he was beastly from then on. Going with your theme of we're not really helping you out. There's not much you can do about Osborne. He's really, really good. You're not going to sit him. Faddis is probably the one that's on the fence for a few managers, but I suspect he probably shouldn't be. As long as he's starting, he does good things. He plays that first receiver a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah. I think we actually picked that out in that first game that he played, that was something unusual.
I've seen it with Naholo a little bit before as well with the Highlanders last year, and it looks like that's just what they want from someone to come in off that right wing. Ben Smith's going to go through the concussion protocol this week, I understand, and he's a doubt for the Reds clash as well, as is Elliot Dixon. He got a head cut. He went off. He didn't go off for long, I don't think. Came off for Shane Christie, I think it was. Rob Thompson. What are your thoughts on Rob Thompson now after having one more body of work to look at?
He's an every week starter. I don't think there's any doubt about that as a number 2.
Yeah, I think so. He's one of those cunning acts of being in the right place. He's not like lights out at anything, like any one particular area. He just seems to be there. When he's kicking a ball through, he'll be there. When someone's dropping a ball, he'll be there. When there's something that's spat out of a ruck, he just tends to be there. And for a fantasy rugby draft manager, I think those are good signs. I think he could have scored a bit more. Did you see that comical ending where he got gassed by, I think it might have been even Cottrell, the 8, one of the loose forwards.
That's right.
Kicking that ball through. It was all moot anyway because it was
a knock on. Yeah.
That's right. Faddis had knocked the ball on, but then he tried to just use his weight to lean over, and the guy just picked him up. It was just brilliant.
Yeah.
The Force were pretty good in this match, though, weren't they?
This is standards Force stuff. Play pretty well and sort of give it away towards the end and end up losing. Yeah, so a lot tougher than I think most folks thought it was going to be. I thought this was just going to be a Highlanders coming out party. And I think certainly got a little bit of surprise with the Force being up 14-love pretty early on. For fantasy rugby, so that's 2 good games for Masarewa now. What are your thoughts on him? Actually, let's shape it this way. So, Haylett Petty, another low score from him. Even though he scored that try early on, you just wondered, okay, is this the night that maybe the shackles come off? But no, he only got 10 points. Didn't disappoint you. He's very Kurt Coleman-ish, isn't he? He's just a banker, just 10 points. But he's certainly in that third outside back row. Yep. No, look, I think the things that we've said previously about the Force still stand. I think they'll be better at home. Obviously, they hold on to the ball, and that's always helpful. The Masarewa experiment, which we called off perhaps 4 weeks ago and then called it back on 2 weeks ago. Well, it continues to be on.
That's right, yeah.
And, and I think, as we pointed out, he kind of is one of the few players to add a little bit of spark. You get the feeling that if the Force actually had a decent centre, it'd probably do pretty well, because it is this retain possession, go side to side sort of thing, but without any massive ball carriers, which is why it's a little bit surprising that they don't start Steve Maffey, but hey, there you go.
Yeah, that's true. So for their outside back ranking, so Morahan did okay. He wasn't too bad. He scored something like 15 points. Who rank them, actually? Do it this way. Who do you think, out of the three, DHP, Morahan or Masarewa, going forward to own?
I'll still go DHP, Masarewa, Morahan.
Would you?
Yep.
I've seen enough now with DHP that I think I'd prefer to have an upside of Masarewa, and maybe even Morahan. I might even put him around the other way. I know it's very hit and miss with them. Well, sorry, it's very, it fluctuates with Masarewa. You've got a pretty low floor as well at the same, but I think you have that ceiling, and I quite like that. But yeah, it changes every week with those guys. Anything more from this match? There
really isn't.
Okay. Lions Crusaders. I guess the first thing to say is that pitch was terrible. It was cutting up quite significantly, and I heard something quite interesting. Did you hear the guys say that they're waiting for the first cold frost or the cold turn before the grass takes?
No, I didn't actually catch that bit of commentary. But how many pitches have we seen doing this so far this year? It seems like every second pitch that we play on has this problem.
It's like the groundman is surprised. It's like, there's a Super Rugby game on. Oh, yeah. I'll prepare it now then.
Well, this whole sand-based thing, which seems to be what's happening, just tunes up so easily.
It does, yeah, absolutely. And as you say, it's on a lot of pitches, and it's causing quite a few problems. The Crusaders really just won this match just after half time for the 10 minutes. The Lions proverbially didn't come out of the sheds. The Crusaders made a lot of mistakes. Lions made more. Wasn't a particularly polished performance from the Crusaders, but it was very, very good. Again, on your theme, Nadolo was good, but we don't need to talk about that. I think most people are going to talk about Crotty, right? The 3 tries.
Yeah, I got Crottied this weekend.
Yeah, you got Crottied.
And I felt quite aggrieved by it, because I'd imagine this is probably a once-in-a-career thing for him. Yeah. And Haley's Comet will be coming around next time he scores a hat-trick at this level. So it's just, it's just one of those things. I guess you got to suck it up. But I couldn't believe it at the time.
Well, that's right. So he'll get the 3 tries and he'll grab the headlines, but it was Johnny McNichol's game. Crotty finished off a lot of things. A couple from Nadolo and then another one. He actually, that second try he created was pretty impressive. I say impressive, but Manisi did, and I'll get onto him, but did his best job at trying to avoid him all night. But back to Johnny McNichol. This is kind of what we expected, you and I expected at the start of the season. It's taken a long time for Blackadder to put him in. I just wonder if maybe there was an injury in the off-season or at the end of last season that just slowly bringing him back in, or maybe it was just resting at the start. I'm not too sure, but either way, he's going gangbusters at the moment. He's breaking the line. He's doing that kind of similar role to Fadders, isn't he? He does that first receiver.
Yeah.
Richard Moanga, again, I don't know how difficult that is, Richie Moanga versus Richard, but Richard Moanga again apparently. He was steady, got you 15 points, decent goal kicking this week, a bit better than last week anyway. And it actually could have been a bit better, there's a couple of darts close to the line as well. What do you pull out from the Crusaders match?
I'd say that the sometimes maligned Fonz, usually maligned by you actually, has been alright actually this year. He's been fairly steady.
He has, yeah. Dad and I have a bit of a joke about it, to be honest. It's quite funny. It's like, old mate just keeps on, just not letting us down, which is damning with faint praise.
Yeah.
No, he's as solid as a midfielder. There was a comical moment when Acker was running for that try, the replacement hooker, and Ben Volavola and him both looked at each other and said, yours. and sure enough, try was scored because neither of those two actually have any pace to try and make up a mistake like that.
I just think, he didn't get a lot of points. He only got 5.8, but just as a general rule, I guess, because, one of the things I guess we're looking out for here is we could tell you that, hey, this guy got a lot of points, and that's pretty obvious to everybody. Here's someone that didn't, but I actually think has a bit more potential to get points because he's just working well into the team. He's getting involved and getting into space, and I think he's probably got the opportunity to set a lot of tries up just in the role that he's playing.
I do, and that backline's a lot more settled now. I think that's the starting lineup. I think they'll get better and better. He's the guy that you get a lot out of. He's got limited talent, and he's got, that sounds harsh. He's obviously very, very talented, but compared to the likes of, say, I don't know, George Moala, Ricky Ioane, that type of thing, he just doesn't have that. But you get a lot out of him. And he's got that. He's a good foil for Nadolo, McNichol, and Crotty inside him as well.
Yeah, we talk about people in good positions or good roles. Having Nadolo standing on the outside of you is a good one.
Yeah, that's right.
Pretty much just pass to him, watch him score, or try and get somewhere near him for the offload.
Yeah, not for much, but Luke Romano, I'll be surprised if he's in the team for next week. I think it'll be Scott Barrett and Sam Whitelock. There was pathetic defence on his after that free kick, or the penalty, the quick tap, and he also, if Yankees hadn't scored that in the corner, he had fallen over, and it was the third penalty in the road. That was a yellow card against Romano. He was just on the wrong side. But because Yankees scored, it's one of those situations where the refs, for whatever reason, I never really understand why they do it, but they just kind of play advantage. Okay, well, that's enough. You scored the try and kicked the goal. For the Lions, I guess probably all starts and finishes at the Lions front row at the moment. They're incredible, aren't they? And it's not just one player doing it.
No, it's that wee wrecking ball.
That's right. What are they? The Wart Hog, they called him.
The Wart Hog, yeah. I like that. That was good. Yeah, that was. He was just unstoppable, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right. But they've got Smith as well, and they've got Marks. These guys are just, really, really impressive. So, yeah, good front row. I think. I guess it depends on what your view is on whether it's sustainable or not, but certainly they've got the players in there.
Yeah, from a fantasy point of view, they're absolutely killing it.
Yeah, they are.
And I guess there's sort of no reason to think that it'll drop off too much.
I don't think so, no. I don't. And sometimes, with the Hurricanes front row, when Dane Coles isn't there, there's a big drop-off. But, if you drop off Marks and you've got Ackers coming in, the Wart Hog, and then if you drop off another one, you've got Smith coming in, it's just... Yeah, I don't think they lose much by doing a lot of the rotation that they've got. Anyway, Yankees goal kicking, exceptional. Did you watch this match?
Yeah.
Yeah, just impressive goal kicking, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah, they did sort of touch on the fact that he's a confidence player, and you could see early on, he kicked a couple of goals, scored that try, it was just sort of oozing out of him after that. You just felt like he couldn't miss. Yeah,
and look, if you're a Romano owner, and if you're a Faf de Klerk owner, you'd be worried. Faf was terrible in this match. There was, just after half time, there was 2 passes that he made and that kick that was just aimless as well, that he just set his team on the back foot when they needed to be going forward. If I was a Faf owner, I would be very worried that Dylan Smith might come in this weekend and play ahead of him. Because it was one of those performances where it looked like Ackerman wants to drop people, and I suspect him and Manisi are probably going to be in the firing line. Manisi couldn't tackle anything all day. I'm not sure what was going on there. There was one that he tried on the Dola where he just dived at the ground a metre to the right of him. It was the strangest thing you'll see. It was the one where, I think it might have been Crotty's try actually, the Crotty one out wide. Strange, see that again, it's just odd what he's doing. Anything more from this match?
I don't think so.
No, I've got a note here. Look, I really like Joel Stransky's commentary. His analysis is balanced, he's fairly level-headed, he doesn't get too cut up in the emotion of a length of the field try or anything. He provides good even keel, and I like that. One last point. Did you clock it at the end, that little dust-up that they had? And Sam Whitelock winding back the clock with the classic look at the scoreboard call?
Yeah, it was big man on little man though, wasn't it?
It was big man, little man. I'm not sure what was going to end up there. Also, did you see his... So the Crusaders obviously been doing the facial hair thing on tour in South Africa. Luke Romano's was terrible, but Sam Whitelock's, did you catch that?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, the big Zorro on the side. I guess you can. All right. Blues Jaguares, you attended this match. How was the mood on the street?
It was actually funny because we arrived a little bit late and we were queuing up to get tickets, and we probably ended up about 10 minutes late, and I didn't even realise the game had started. That's how quiet it was inside. There was just absolutely nothing going on.
Right. Bit more buzz going on in the tuck shop line.
Yeah, that's
queue
right.
For food.
Yeah.
So I guess a few people are going to be wondering how Reno Ranger went. I know he set up a higher west try from an offload from the ground, but overall impressions? Didn't really stick out?
No, I had a few people yelling at him for being greedy.
I guess those are the types of things you get to see firsthand when you're watching it live. But
you get a very different impression, yeah. You sort of just get comments being shouted out of the crowd. So
yeah, right. Eli West was pretty good in this match.
Yep.
33 points or something like that for fantasy rugby.
Mm. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he is pretty good. Would you have Tusapisi or West? It's still West, isn't it?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
And that's a distance, right?
Yeah, I mean West is probably on the cusp of the top 5, if not in it. I mean, in terms of fantasy points right now, I think he is probably 4th or 5th, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. And in this match, which was not significantly high scoring and pretty dour, it was a pretty good effort to pull out 33 points somehow. We had a bit of a so Thomas Lasana was subbed, or sorry, he wasn't subbed, he was pulled from the starting lineup before the kick-off, which was a bit of a blow for a lot of managers because I know we talked about him last week, and he looked pretty good the week before as well. And Radio New Zealand didn't do us any favours by they put a picture of Pablo Montero, which was his replacement, as part of the article, and they had underneath it they had Thomas Lasana as the note saying carrying the ball. So a lot of managers were like, well, I saw him carrying the ball at least once, so why haven't I got any points? But yeah, it turns out it was Pablo Montero, and obviously the journalist was just looking at number on back and looking at the program that was printed. The note I've got here, so there's, I think, the one shining light out of Argentina, and the person who's probably going to do the best out of this situation that the Jaguar is in is the Argentinian national coach. He should be asking for a raise. Daniel Hawkard, I think his name is. But if that guy isn't proof that, well, you know, it's all down to me. It's nothing to do with the players. It's me. If they give me the raise, I'll be walking straight into the CEO's office and asking for more money because they're not particularly playing very well. This was a lot more committed, I guess, for a team that was, I think, they rested a lot of players, right? I think the thought was that it was going to be a little bit more one-sided, but they played fairly well. And Nicolas Sanchez came on and sparked a few things as well. I'm not sure there's many more takeaways from this match. So there was a bit of a question around the weather. It kind of came and went pretty quickly. What was the weather like?
Oh, it was a fantastic night. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, really warm actually.
Had it been raining during the day?
It had, but I wouldn't have said that would have affected the conditions at all, to be honest. The rain had come along quite a lot earlier.
Okay, sure. Anything more you want to touch on for this match? Let me just have a look at any point scorers.
So it does make you wonder whether, I know traditionally in the Northern Hemisphere they always viewed Super Rugby as kind of a form of basketball or something, didn't they? Where it was just, you know, high scoring, no defence kind of things. Makes me wonder whether the Argentinian players that have been playing over there have read all that, taken it on board, and decided that's how they want to play. Yeah, because you're right, they're not playing the way the national team plays.
No.
Playing with a different style, really. So, yeah, I mean, unless this guy's the sort of Jose Mourinho of rugby.
That's right, yeah. There was a couple of times where they tried to run it out from their own line and they just knocked the ball on, or there was a bit of inaccuracy at the ruck and someone kicked it forward and just puts them straight under pressure. And in a tight game like this, it's just, yeah, there's too much. I saw Moala come on at the end. He got held up over the line. I was thinking, that would have been an interesting discussion come Monday, but as it turned out, didn't get many points coming off the bench. Okay, Brumbies Chiefs, your beloved Brumbies. Fairly convincing performance from the Brumbies. Jesus, indeed. How good are the Chiefs? Go on. I'll leave this to you.
Then they're not bad, actually. This is one of these situations where fantasy rugby sometimes impinges on my ability to watch these games, because I was getting James Load in this game. He was smashing me, and I was sort of, on one hand I was kind of gutted about the fact that was happening to me, but then obviously on the other hand I was just wowed with how great the Chiefs were playing. So, I mean, yeah, we talk about lack of analysis. You're playing every Chief, and last week it was, well, how did Brad Weber not score points when the team was playing that well? Well, he made up for that this week. So, yeah, it's, I mean, you just need to watch them. It's, you don't really have to say anything more than that, really. It's just the interplay between them, the ability to spot those opportunities, just the speed of thought, really, to take those chances and turn defence into attack. Those are the things that are really impressive, I guess.
And the scary thing is, I don't think they're at top gear yet. Looking at someone like James Lowe, who's really, really quick, but he's making breaks and he's cutting people up at the moment. Not necessarily with sheer speed, but more guile at the moment. He's just kind of gliding past people. I think he's got another 10% to give in terms of top end. I don't think he's quite there yet.
Yeah, you could be right.
It's scary as hell. Yeah.
Actually, speaking of speed and line breaks, so just in terms of what constitutes a line break, and we were actually talking about this earlier, but say something like the Tony Pulu try, where he's kind of draw and pass, he's an overlap, so he's not really anybody in front of him. Mm-hmm. Do you think that constitutes a line break?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I think they're a bit liberal on a line break in terms of, I think sometimes even when you can score a try, if you go over in the tackle of someone, even though it's not going to be marked as a missed tackle, you've broken the line, if you know what I mean. And I know it's not a clean break in that respect, but you've scored the try. I've seen some of them awarded previously. So I think they're a little bit more liberal on the clean break than what it might actually be.
So speaking of Tony Pulu, he's obviously the new kid on the block here. We've discussed probably all the others ad nauseum. I suppose the takeaway or the question really is, do we see enough that we think he'll stay in the team? Obviously, the position that he's in and playing with those people around him, there's always going to be opportunities. So if you can make that starting position your own, you're going to be fantasy relevant. And I think we probably saw enough.
If I was Rennie, I'd be like, right, that's my team. That's the one that worked. It's got pace. You always say there's no substitute for pace, and it's everywhere in that back line.
Yeah.
Cruden's probably the slowest, and he's not necessarily a slouch. It looks like he's run into a headwind sometimes, but he just makes up the yards.
Yeah.
But Tony Pulu's lightning. And Greg Clark made a mention at once, says, he put the jet shoe, the classic jet shoes came on at one point from Greg Clark. But no, look, I think we'll get on to Pulu in the free agent pickup section, but pretty strong. Question for you, being a Chiefs supporter and being an astute fantasy advisor, who's your top fly half at the moment? If you put all of the fly halves into a big melting pot and you could pull one of them out for the rest of the season, who would it be?
Right now, I think it would still be Barrett.
Would it?
I think right now, based on what we know.
Yeah, okay, it's going to hurt me to say this, but it's Aaron Cruden for me. And maybe it's because of the bit of information that I heard this week was that Cruden is going to take the kicking again. So after the Blues match, they have a bye, the Chiefs. But from that point on, it's going to be Cruden's job, certainly for the first game until, he still has to prove that he kicks and he gets a decent percentage and what have you, but in terms of giving responsibilities, it's been handed over to him.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think if that's the premise, if we can guarantee that, then I think that's fair. That's Cruden. And I guess the question that then opens up is McKenzie. Is there anybody that you would trade for McKenzie knowing he won't be taking kicks? Is he still the number one player?
It brings him back to the conversation, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Brings him back to the Israel Folau. For me, someone like James Lowe, Ben Smith, these guys. It brings him back to that equation. But they're giving the role to Aaron Cruden, but I'm not convinced at the moment. I'm not convinced it's going to stay. I suspect it might go back to McKenzie, or maybe they'll just live with, they'll try and force the issue, get him into goal kicking form, match practice, nothing better than, live fire, they say. So, back to your question, is there anyone I would trade? Look, I'd probably still have Folau. And I'm not saying that because of any sort of analysis, just because it's Israel Folau. It probably is smarter to have McKenzie just on the off chance, well, not on the off chance, on the better than even chance that he picks up the goal again, or takes 1 or 2 shots a game.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you think? Where do you come down on that?
At the moment, I'm thinking probably not. I just think that
it's also fun to watch, isn't it? It's great to have a player like that in your team that you just want to watch.
Absolutely, yeah. And we said the same thing about Haaland. You just want kind of players that can spark stuff. And McKenzie's obviously one of those guys. I think I'm still going towards McKenzie because of the team he's playing in. We'll come to the Waratahs and how bad they sort of seem at the moment. And I think I just have a feeling that the energy that McKenzie's bringing to it, whereas Folau, it's not that I have any doubts about his ability, obviously. You just wonder sometimes about his enthusiasm.
Bit too much Maria, too tired, not enough training?
Too tired.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
We'll keep that one. One thing that we don't really talk about and probably does slant it in Damien McKenzie's favour is fantasy rugby draft's all about that person that you said, yep, I saw him first. I picked up him. I drafted him ahead of anybody else. I knew he was better. I picked him first. I'm the player that, that spotted the talent. And the whole premise of fantasy rugby draft is your shit, I'm not. I know what I'm talking about. You don't. And there is a certain element of walking around the pub when Damien McKenzie gets named for the All Blacks saying, yep, that was me. Knew it was going to happen. I got pulled. Drafted him. Dusting your shoulders off and getting a pint.
That's right.
All right. From the Brumbies, David Pocock, I see, has been cited. That was pretty bad, actually, but we don't want to dwell too much on that. Cavalli played okay for the Brumbies. Got a few points, but I don't really want to dwell too much on there. You watched the game in full. I only saw, it was only on the background where I was. Aiden Toa, the bits I saw just looked standard as per, shaky.
Yeah, it's weird because he's capable of making line breaks, but then he's just capable of just dumb errors as well.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Anything more for this game for you?
No, Brumbies, you don't worry about the Brumbies. They don't play the Chiefs every week.
I don't think so. The thing that bothers me a little bit is, and I don't...
You don't think they have to play the Chiefs every week?
Yeah, well, there's that. Exactly, yeah. No, but in terms of... There was a whole talk around Michael Jones and being sacked and then coming back and going in for a court injunction, all of these type of things. And look, I've never been in a club at a professional level. I hope you're all sitting down. But it always strikes me as a little bit weird how that can destabilise a club in terms of in the locker room. But it does seem to have a little bit of an effect on the team. They when they're in South Africa, and maybe it's just that first week back, they haven't had a chance to rest up or get better. Bit of a tough game back after coming back from South Africa, they've given it. But I wonder how much that back office situation has disrupted the Brumbies. But they've got a lot of really, really experienced heads in there. So, as you say, it's the Chiefs, move on. Sunwolves Kings. This is the barn burner that we expected.
This was quite a fun game to watch.
It was, wasn't it?
Partly because of the Mark Hammett's obvious tactic of saying, no set pieces, guys. We're gonna quick tap every penalty. There's no line outs. Quick throw-ins whenever possible. It was crazy. That was literally what they were doing.
Really?
Yeah. No, I'm not joking. It was every penalty, even inside their own half, quick tap.
Right.
They'd obviously decided that for whatever reason they'd taken a week off line out practice and just said, we'll just shelve the whole concept of the line out and we'll just crack on, and that's what they did.
Do you think that was Luaki Moli's doing? You didn't want to get hit in the back of the head or So we had a few questions, I think it was on Thursday. A lot of people were asking about Tatakawa versus Moala versus Seta versus Vatamea, Moroni, Boffelli, Geronimo. Turns out the answer was none of them. I think Tatakawa was the best of them, wasn't he?
Yeah, there was a pretty poor showing from pretty much everybody. I guess I was watching Vatamea pretty closely, and he had an assist first minute or two of the game chalked off because the guy was into touch, and then literally in the last minute of the game he was over the line and someone popped the ball to him and he fumbled that, under pressure obviously, but so it could have been a different day for him. Sure. At least he had chances. I mean, I guess you could say the same for Moala, but the rest of them really didn't fire any shots. Right.
Looking at the points for fantasy rugby, Tusapisi did pretty well. Sunwolves front row, Shotahore getting over again. How did the toolbox go?
The toolbox was impressive again.
Really?
Yeah, he is a real spark for this team, and he's an absolute handful. There actually is something to that, I think. Right. Perhaps not against every opposition, but probably some of perhaps the weakest scrummaging teams, if you can dictate who they are. With ball in hand, he's a difference maker, no doubt about it.
Yeah, right. And what about the henchman, a Bond henchman, Louis Fichet?
The Bond henchman, I think, is Deanna Schoeman.
Yeah, he is Deanna Schoeman, but I like to call it Louis Fichet as well because he's got that mouth guard that's got the weird,
jaws,
jaws thing. Yeah, exactly.
Right. He was decent as well, actually. Yeah. Okay. I think it was an interesting game. It was the Kings were definitely on top for most of it. Mm-hmm. Certainly in up front, and that and the Sunwolves kind of responded by just running it from everywhere. So it wasn't a bad spectacle. Okay. My only other takeaway really was the new winger. I think it's Gray.
Right, Savinda Gray.
Yep. Yeah, so very Gladstone Small-like. Lacking a little bit of a neck. Right. Quite interesting, yeah. Sure.
And Malcolm Yar picked up the try. He's one of the smallest guys, I think. I think he might actually be smaller than me. In terms, I should say, lighter than me.
Yeah.
I think he's at 78 kegs or something, wringing wet. Okay. No other from this match?
No, Duratalo scored again.
Okay, Bulls Cheetahs. For me, I thought this might have been the best candidate for match of the day game, but you share the sentiments, or you got a bit out of this? I think you mentioned before that you can't remember what actually went on.
Yeah, it was pretty attritional from the Bulls, and the Cheetahs trying to play the Cheetahs way, and it not really coming off for them this time around. Yeah, not a whole lot happened. It really wasn't particularly memorable. There were a couple of dust ups. I do remember that.
Oh, I like that. That's good. Yeah, let's hear about those.
Well, one of them, I guess it was handbags, but during the handbag, somebody reached up and sort of made contact with a face that was quite close to the eye, and so we spent about 25 minutes on the TMO reviewing that. So that was entertaining. Lots of different angles to try and find out, what finger it was and how close to the eye it was. So yeah, it was as exciting as I'm making it sound.
So Travis Ismail did alright at the end. I think Yambri Yalengo did well too. We were asking about Chesi Creel. Did he stick out? Did he stand out? I know he did okay with his 15 points or so, and I guess that's an uptick from when he was playing in the midfield, but just finding his feet, finding the combinations outside, or how did he look?
No, he still looks a class above.
Sure.
But I'd agree that he probably is still finding his feet, but it's obvious that he's a sort of a different level of player.
Mm-hmm. And for the Cheetahs, I think we've talked about the main threat is Sargel Peterson.
Yep, and he made his own shot again. Yeah, so he's if you look at the number of points he scored over the season, he's right up there. He's an asset to your team because you probably picked him up off the waiver wire because he would have been undrafted.
Yeah, very
so a guy that's probably scored 80 points on the season and is in the top 10. Yeah, yep. Definitely. You've done well.
Nico Lee. So we added him to the database fairly late on in the piece. A few managers were awake to it. went all right in combination. 15 points is pretty good. Do you remember much of it?
I guess no. And so I think it was one of those strip club type performances where I couldn't honestly tell you where the 15 points came from. It wasn't anything that stood out for me.
Okay.
As opposed to Francois Venter, who always stands out.
Yeah.
Definitely makes an impression.
He's such an unfancied name. We keep on banging on about that. And he's never really mentioned in any kind of higher honours or, when they look at each look at South African rugby players, and he's never really mentioned, but geez, he should be.
Yeah, I mean, last season in Fantasy Rugby Draft, I think he was 3rd or 4th on highest average points for midfielders, but would have fallen way low in drafts for exactly the reason you're saying, just an unfancied name. So you've got a bit of a steal there if you manage to draft him late.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, anything more from this match?
No, it does make you wonder, though, with someone like that, with the unfancied name, whether you still could sneak a trade in for him and what you might be able to get. So perhaps, would you trade, say, Karevi for Venter?
And get Venter?
Yeah, I'm sure you would if you could, wouldn't you? But
yes.
Most people wouldn't want Karevi at the moment. I hate Karevi.
Yeah, I know.
He is killing a couple of my teams.
Yeah, he's killing me as well. I've got him sitting nicely on my bench. I actually played, I won't get into that, but I agree. I think you could get away with that. I've been fairly active in the trading room the last few days, and Karevi's name's popped up a couple of times as people wanting him out of my team. Mm-hmm. Maybe they see
better days ahead or something.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, it has to be, right. And the pedigree from last season's there. I guess he doesn't really let you down too badly nowadays. He gets you that kind of 10 to 15 points. But no, I'd prefer to have Venter in that situation. I assume you would too.
Yeah, I would.
Okay, Rebels Waratahs. So I guess first of all, looking at the Rebels team, it was announced. We said that they had 48 hours to lodge their team news. They took every minute of that. It was bang on 48 hours announced at 6 o'clock on Friday night, which just does wonders for the hearts of FRD managers. But to be fair, I mean, they are the Rebels are one of the most active social media teams. So it's fairly clever that they're building a bit of interest, getting a bit of, using this time, the kickoff time to their advantage, because they know there are certain, certain needs out there that makes their social account a little bit more valuable. In the team, so Hodge came in at 15, and we had Sefanai Valu on the bench, which was great to see. From a game perspective, Mossman, did you like Izzy Folau's chair?
Was he sitting in one of those mini chairs?
Yeah.
Ones that are ridiculously low to the ground.
Yeah, that's right. Someone actually said it's a normal sized chair. It's just Izzy Folau.
He's just huge.
Yeah.
I've seen this in a few other games.
I have too.
Why can't they not find a normal sized chair? It looks like a footstool.
Yeah, I have no idea why they're doing that. It can't be good for hamstrings and calves and everything when these guys are cooling down, right?
Totally.
I just don't know why. It just seems strange.
Spent the budget on that they can't afford these chairs. I mean, they clearly didn't spend it on the pitch.
Maybe it's something to do with the first row behind them. Do they need to see the game? Is it more important for the two guys behind them in the crowd to see over the top of Izzy Folau's head? Don't know. Just crazy. But being a Sunday, everyone was looking at Israel Folau to get you over the line for your matchup.
Yeah, I was hoping for 75 points from him in one league.
Yeah, we got close. What did you get? -point? I think I can't remember a lower score from Izzy. Can you?
No, I can't. It was actually interesting because coming into this, I think I had one matchup I was leading by 7 and he was done and I still had Folau to come. And in another I was sort of 75 points
popping
behind.
the champagne at that point.
And I had Folau and another couple of people and it was like, I could see a scenario here where I scored the 75 points. Halfway through, I'm like, okay, forget about that.
What was I thinking?
Let's just not get a -7 here.
That's right. Goodness gracious. But, so they really missed Beale, didn't they? I think they might have been better playing an Inanimate Carbon Rod at 12. Horvitz just didn't have a great game. No. A lot of their play broke down at 12. It wasn't solely the issue, but you could tell that he was really missing Beale inside him.
Yeah, they were just rubbish all round. They just seemed they were too blasé. I think they had the impression they were just going to walk this game. There were a lot of, I guess, offloads or shoveled passes that were just really inappropriate that resulted in knock-ons, and they just keep trying it. It was just dumb rugby.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach Guilford had a pretty terrible game. He apologised to everyone on Twitter as well, which is important.
Zach Guilford is rubbish.
Yeah, I know.
I have totally changed my mind about this. I apologise to all those people that 6 weeks ago I said keep an eye out for Zach Guilford. He's going to be good. He sucks.
Yeah. So there was an opportunity to play at fullback, which I thought was fun. When Folau went off, he switched to there. Jesus. Chaos ensued.
I've just realised, he's massively overrated. He almost looks unfit. It's weird. He seems to be puffing constantly and sort of not up with the play. He makes elementary mistakes. He might make elemental mistakes.
He might make the cheese mistake. Yeah, that's right.
Explain a lot. He's been eating one kind of cheese. He when he sort of gets down the sideline, he'll attempt the grubber. It inevitably goes into touch.
Yeah.
I've never seen him get one in play yet.
No, absolutely. And how Phil Kearns hasn't sat down with him yet and said, put the grubber away. He hates the chip kick. Yeah,
I'm done with Zach Guilford.
No, absolutely. Well, I think we were hoping for a bit more out of Reece Robinson. At least he looks like there's signs of life with him. They just don't get the ball to him.
No, that's right.
If it doesn't stop at Horowitz, it stops at Carraro. So from a team perspective, from an actual rugby perspective, it's not that great. But from fantasy rugby, it's good to be a little bit selfish, and Carraro is that player. Yeah. And he scored well. He scored okay. Another player that scored quite well actually was Jed Holloway. He came off at half time with an injury, but he'd already racked up 16.2 points at that stage.
Yep. I think we kind of touched on it before. He's a strange one because he doesn't have any kind of top end speed, but still manages to beat defenders.
Yeah, that's right. He reminds me a bit of Kieran Fonatere in a different jersey, different guys. Just a really good kind of club man does everything right, and he's in gaps all of a sudden. Yeah,
but he's the number one lock in fantasy, and I can't see any reason why you'd pick anybody else over him.
No, that's right. Apparently the injury's not serious. The Waratahs are on a bye this week, so he'll be back after that. That was the only positive thing coming out of the Waratahs camp today or yesterday. But we've focused quite appropriately on the negative. The positive, the Rebels, they weren't particularly great. I think everyone's lauding them as, the Rebels, this is their kind of breakthrough game to go on to bigger and better things. But I thought they were okay.
They were okay.
But
yeah. That's right. They got out of the blocks early, didn't score any points in the second half. And just sort of held on. I think the loose trio, I think Reid and McMahon were both good. The rest of them were sort of decent. Inman and Allison were okay. I think obviously the front row was good here as well. Yeah. There wasn't any standout performances. I think this was more about how bad the Waratahs were than how good the Rebels were. And I know certainly we were an eye out early doors to see who would take the kicks.
Yeah, that's right.
Sure enough, Debrasini
was good.
Stepped up and took them. And without that option, Reece Hodge just looks like an average player to me.
He does, doesn't he? That's what I was going to get on to. You were going through the back line there, and I was a bit disappointed with Reece, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally, yeah. I mean, it's Dom Shipley all day for me.
I think so. And it'll be interesting to see what happens when Placid's back. If Debrasini is kicking goals and Naivalu's on the wing, it's going to be an interesting decision there, I think, from the man at the Rebels. Anything more from this match?
Just the fact that you didn't remember the coach's name, I thought that was good. The man at the Rebels.
Yeah, I hate that. Passes to the man, right?
Passes to the man.
Yeah.
Nice one. That's good. Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what we'll call him from now on, the man at the Rebels.
T-man.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go across to the free agent desk then. First one, and it's not so actually for those who are tuning in for the first time, we try and have a look at players who are generally owned in less than 50% of leagues, and kind of have a look at all of their points. Have a look at the points scored this weekend, and then try and offer up some suggestions going into the waiver on Tuesday night that you may want to pick up, and you may want to. It's a bit of fool's gold. Is this repeatable? But one player who didn't play this week, who I've heard good news on, is Tom English. Some great investigative tweeting from Ed Pye. Well done, sir. So he had a bit of a conversation with him on Twitter. and English said he's out he'll be back in a couple of weeks, quote unquote. What that means, not too sure, but either way, that's good news. Okay, let's look at the person who scored the most points, who has owned in less than 50% of leagues, is Tusapisi, but we don't have to stress him. The person I wanted to talk about was Tony Pulu. So he's only owned in 15% of leagues. He scored 25 points. Is he your number one pickup of the week?
What are my other options?
Okay, let's go through another option. Players are still less than 50% owners as Fadders, Shane Gates, Iglesias, Liam Squire, Masarewa, Nico Lee, Dan Pryor, Ryan Villiers, Ed Quirk, CJ Villiman, Malcolm Yar, Scott Vardy, Yamada, Fouché, Parker, Emery, Sargel Peterson.
Right, okay. So there's a few names in there that stood out. Like, the first thing is Liam Squire needs to be owned.
Yeah, I know.
Definitely.
Yeah, he's insane.
Yeah, he is a good player, and he's in a good team. It suits his style of play. He's going to score a lot of points. He should. In
a world where there's not a hell of a lot of loose forwards doing great work.
No, that's right.
He's got to be up there.
Yeah, he's I wouldn't say a lock, but he's going to get you close to. If he plays a full game, which has been his problem, he's going to get you close to 10 points.
Yeah, that's right.
If not more. So I think he needs to be owned. Peterson, we talked about him. That amazes me that no one's picked up Peterson.
Yeah, he's getting up there now, I will say. He is 42% owned. So I think I think people have figured it out now.
And so those were the names I kind of picked out. There were a few others in there. Yamada, I think, was one. I think Yamada is worth picking up. I guess if it was Yamada versus Tony Pulu, well, Yamada's been getting it done, and we know he'll start. I guess it depends what your needs are. If you've got a stacked team and you're looking for a number 4, ish, or kind of outside back, then I guess it's Pulu. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Pulu. It's just
it's the uncertainty of starting, right?
Totally, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've seen what Rennie does. That it's not like there aren't other players knocking on the door there. So, I mean, when you bring a guy like Fisiahi in from league, you'd expect that you wouldn't do it unless you had some intention of playing him. So you'd kind of expect to see him in there at some point.
Yeah, I'm prepared to roll the dice on Pulu.
I think that's fair. I mean, so am I, and I already have done.
Yeah, that's right. It bothers me that you can look so good like that, and yet it doesn't actually matter. Because it's all down to a coach rotating and resting and doing what he wants. And maybe, as you say, Fisiahi does come in. Sam McNichol will probably come in, and maybe we'll see Anton Leonard-Brown out on the right wing next week. Yeah, it's just a bit odd. But so you won't look at Shane Gates, Iglesias, Nico Lee?
No, not interested in any of those guys. The guy that I am kind of interested in, if you are desperate at loose forward, is Geordie Reid.
Right. I thought you were going to go with CJ Velleman, but go on with Geordie Reid.
No, I just the eye test with Geordie Reid. He hasn't scored massive points so far this season, although he has got double digits in back-to-back games now. Just like the look of him. Yep. I think it's he's just a strong ball carrier and sort of has a little bit of appears to have a nose for the try line as well. Anyway, so he'll have a crack.
Yeah, that's fair. I like to see what I've seen about CJ Velleman, loose forward for the Kings. He gets through a lot of work. He wasn't far off getting the bonus for tackles this week. But yeah, he's picked up a bit of a slow start, 10, 6, 6. Then he's 13 and 15. And for someone that's on the waiver wire who's 11% owned, I think that's not bad. I think if you can find that on your waiver wire, that's a good kind of third loose forward, perhaps even second loose forward if you need it in a buy. Okay, let's move on to the top scores and managers. So this week, Garrett Graham topped the list at 239.9. He headed out the second place by 0.7 of a point. So congratulations, Garrett. Good job. And the top managers, Wesley Mundell, Peter Lyes, Ben Wiley, Luke Crombie, and Jonathan Ford, rounding out the fifth. And the top leagues, the Fence Bent drops to number 2, the Highveld Bowl, number 1. And the B&B League is number 3, Cominetta is number 4, and Dave Stickhead's number 5.
Come on, Fence Pants, pick your game up.
Absolutely. Terrible week. It's at this point I should probably explain how those are calculated. So it's all based on your points for in your league, and then it's based on how strong your league is. So the strength of your league is calculated by summing up all of the points for, and then it's all indexed off the top league. So Wesley Mundell, I think, had 980 points or something like that, and because his strength of his league was a little bit less than the others, he got ratcheted down to 913, but it still made him as the top manager. Okay, anything more from this week, mate?
Just two things, actually. Just going back to the free agent thing. You mentioned Tom English.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we don't know for certain, but where would you see him fitting into your top free agents if we're saying he's sort of 2 weeks away? I mean, I would have thought if he was 2 weeks away, he's got to be there or thereabouts, being in that top waiver pick.
Yep, I would say so. So not many managers actually got rid of him, which was good. He's 40% owned, so he still qualifies.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so a lot of managers have held on to him. There was only a 4% drop this week, which was clever because we didn't have any news, and it didn't come out in the team news either. It sounded bad on Monday when they were talking about it, but they asked for that second opinion. So I think there's quite cleverly, and someone like Ed clearly obviously has got his finger on the pulse before he makes that cut decision. Do a bit of research, dig out what you can find, and he's obviously made a really good decision there because as you say, he could be the top agent pickup. Okay, so let's look at that then. So if the Rebels did play Naivalu, Dom Schipperle, Jonah Placid, Reece Hodge, they're all fit, how do you shoehorn those into three?
That's a good point.
Because English wasn't there at the start, right?
No, that's right.
I don't know. Yeah,
okay.
Because I assume Naivalu would go straight in.
You'd think so, yeah.
When
so there's going to be, yeah. And then he didn't look unfit.
No.
He was running. That's always good.
And then it's between Shippers and English, I guess.
Yeah. And they're going to go with Schipperle. He's the man down there.
Yeah, he's good. Okay. All right. No, thanks, man. And you had a second one?
Yeah, I think it was the Highlanders Force game. Yeah, fairly certain it was. There was 2 weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago? Justin Marshall and his lack of knowledge of how the bonus point law works. But at least he knew that the bonus point law had changed. Whereas Matthew Cooper started talking about how they just scored the fourth try, they've got the bonus point, and I think it was TJ had to say to him, no, 4 tries, that's not how it works anymore. And Cooper just said, okay, I'll take your word for it. And I was just like, you are a paid commentator. There have been some law changes in the off season. You think you could have at least taken the time to notice that this had changed. He was completely oblivious to it.
You see in America, these guys who a lot of the colour commentators or the analysts, that they work their ass off. You know, they are studying everything. They're at every camp. They're at every training camp. They're at every training run. They follow the team so closely, and they're acutely aware of rule changes and everything. It just doesn't seem like that. It seems like, well, I'm an ex-rugby player. I've got privilege. I've got this position. So, yeah, maybe I don't need to learn the rules up. That's terrible. I saw that too.
Shocking.
Okay, a little bit of admin. You can follow us on Twitter at Fantasy Rug Draft, at Fantasy RUG Draft. Mossman's on at Nathan Mossman. Drop us a mail at support@fantasyrugbydraft.com. We've got a lot of interesting trade discussions coming through over email, which is great. I wanted to, it's the uncomfortable bit in me, but I don't really like fishing for reviews, but we'd really appreciate if we could get some iTunes reviews up. It helps us spread the word a little bit wider, get a little bit more information around injuries, team formations, and who's kicking, who's not kicking. We've got some really great managers who are on the ball, and they provide us with some great information a lot of the time before Nathan and I actually see it. So it's really good to get those numbers up, to get the people listening to the podcast so that they can contribute and make it all a better place. So yeah, if you do appreciate it, if you do like the podcast, then jump onto iTunes and give us a review. That's about all the time we have for today. Thanks for downloading and listening. I'm Bruce Wilkinson. He's Nathan Mossman.
The man from the moss.
El Tio Rapido.
What a bust here by Christian Cullen. Plenty of support and